Let me be perfectly clear and say this in a way that cuts through all the noise and speculation you've been drowning in for years. As of this week, the financial trigger we have been anticipating has officially been pulled, and the revaluation process for the Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong is no longer a theoretical event on some distant horizon. It is a live, active, and operational procedure being implemented through Tier 1 global financia. I know you've heard promises before. You've seen dates come and go, and you've likely grown a healthy sense of skepticism, which is why today's information isn't based on rumor or hopeful interpretation, but on the concrete, traceable movements within the international banking system that confirm the monetary sovereignty of Iraq and Vietnam is now being recognized at a level that will shock the global markets. The foundational element of this entire process, the key that has finally unlocked the vault, is the confirmed and verifiable completion of Iraq's compliance with Chapter 7 of the International Monetary Fund's Articles of Agreement, specifically the removal of Article 14 status, which for decades labeled them as a transitional economy with currency restrictions. This shift to Article VIII status is not a minor bureaucratic update. It is the single most significant financial declaration a nation can make, legally obligating them to abandon all forms of currency manipulation, multiple exchange rates, and restrictions on current international transactions, meaning the Central Bank of Iraq is now legally bound by international law to allow their currency to find its true onomatopoeia, are beginning to reflect this new unshackled reality. What you are seeing now with the initial slightly volatile rate releases is the direct result of this compliance. The old program rate was an artificial construct propped up by the IMF's temporary measures, but that scaffolding has now been officially dismantled, and the world is getting its first glimpse of what the real asset-backed value of the dinar looks like outside of a wartime economy. Think of it this way. For years, the dinar was like a luxury sports car kept in a garage, its true potential hidden. But with the Article VIII status confirmed, the garage door has been officially raised, the engine has been started, and the car is now being rolled out onto the showroom floor for the global market to appraise. And that appraisal is happening right now through the initial rate-setting mechanisms. This is precisely why major international banks, the ones you and I know by name, have begun their internal operational updates, quietly loading new currency codes and preparing their foreign exchange desk for a significant liquidity event. They are not doing this on a whim. They are acting on the official SWIFT traffic and financial telegrams that have been disseminated following Iraq's compliance milestone, positioning themselves to facilitate the public announcement. The initial rates being discussed, which are substantially higher than the previous program rate, are a reflection of a fundamental recalibration based on Iraq's proven oil reserves, the fifth largest in the world, their massive natural gas holdings, and their rapidly diversifying non-oil economic sectors, which have seen growth exceeding 7% this past year, all of which provide a tangible, defensible asset base that justifies a strat. This isn't a speculative pump. This is a currency finally being priced according to the immense tangible wealth and economic potential of its nation, a potential that has been deliberately suppressed until the precise moment when the international community, through the IMF and World Bank, verified that Iraq's financial infrastructure was robust enough to handle the influx of global capital and its anti-money laundering and counterterror.
Effective, which as of this month they are.
The process is deliberately staggered, starting with the primary dealer banks and international settlement houses to ensure stability and prevent the kind of market shock that could derail this historic monetary transition, which is why you may not see the final public-facing rate on your standard bank app for another few days. But the gears of this machine are undeniably in motion, and the first confirmed transactions at these new rates. At other institutional-level clients, the window of opportunity to act before the public announcement, before the global media frenzy begins, is now measured in hours, not days, and the decision you make in this moment will define your financial future for generations to come. Now, let's pull back the curtain on the specific mechanics of how this is unfolding for you as an investor, because understanding the rollout process is the key to securing your profit before the window of public awareness slams shut, and this is where the confirmed data from our network within the banking sector becomes absolutely critical. The initial release of the new rates is not a single global, simultaneous event like flipping a light switch. It is a meticulously orchestrated, phased implementation designed by the financial architects to ensure systemic stability and to prevent the kind of volatile speculation that could undermine the entire revaluation. This process began at the very top of the financial food chain, with the Bank for International Settlements, the Central Bank for Central Banks, which has now disseminated the new currency codes and agreed upon valuation bands to the primary G7 central banks, including the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, and the Bank of England, who have in turn activated their internal protocols. What you are witnessing right now, if you know where to look, is the second phase of this rollout, where these central banks are communicating the operational details to the commercial primary dealer banks, institutions like J.P. Morgan Chase, Citibank, and Bank of America, who are legally obligated to participate in government security auctions and form the essential plumbing of the global monetary system. These dealer banks are currently in a critical 48 to 72-hour operational window, where their internal systems are being updated to recognize the Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese dong, not as exotic currencies with high exchange fees and restrictions, but as fully tradable liquid international currencies with values aligned with the new reality. This is why, if you were to call your local bank branch right now, the frontline teller or even the branch manager would likely have no information and might even give you the same old story about the dinar not being tradable. They're at the very end of the information chain, and this news has not yet been trickled down to them because the priority is to stabilize the core of the system first. The real activity is happening at the Tier 1 level, in the foreign correspondent banking departments and the international wire transfer rooms of these major institutions, where specialized teams are working around the clock processing the initial high-volume transactions for sovereign wealth funds, multinational corporations, and the first wave of informed private currency holders who have the right contacts and protocols. The data we are receiving confirms that the exchange is happening through a two-tiered process. First, a mandatory electronic conversion for the large, pre-registered currency holders, which is already underway, moving their holdings from the old currency codes to the new ones at the new rate. And second, a physical cash-in process that will become widely available to the public once the electronic foundation is fully secure and the system can remain. The rates for the Vietnamese dong are following a nearly identical but parallel track, driven by Vietnam's own spectacular economic metamorphosis into a global manufacturing and technology hub with a GDP growth rate that has consistently outperformed regional peers and a financial transparency that has earned the praise from the World Bank, making its currency revaluation just as inevitable and financially justified as Iraq's. This is not a coincidence. It is a synchronized shift in global economic power, moving value from the debt-based fiat currencies of the West to the asset-rich, production-based economies of the East, and your dinar and dong holdings are your direct ticket into this historic wealth transfer. The initial rates being implemented in these private electronic conversions are indeed substantial, designed to immediately restore the purchasing power parity of these nations and to compensate for decades of inflation and artificial suppression, which is why the profit potential for those who got in early is almost unprecedented in modern financial history. But you must understand that this phased approach means the rate you see today in these initial transactions is not necessarily the final public rate. It is the foundational rate. And as the process moves from primary dealers to secondary banks and then to public-facing retail platforms, the value could see further adjustments based on market demand and final sovereign announcements. This is precisely why timing is everything. Acting now, during this operational window before the public announcement, allows you to potentially lock in at the most favorable tier of this new valuation structure, a tier that may not be available once the news hits the mainstream financial media and a tidal wave of retail investors floods the system, creating bottlenecks and potentially altering the final public exchange dynamics. Your immediate mission is to bypass the uninformed local channels and connect with the financial institutions that are already active in this space, the ones processing the wires and managing the asset conversions for the clients who are already moving their wealth. So the undeniable question now is what you are going to do with this information, because knowledge without action is merely entertainment, and this is the furthest thing from a game. This is the moment where your foresight and patience meet their ultimate test, and the steps you take in the next few hours will irrevocably determine your position in the new financial landscape that is currently being forged. Let's be brutally pragmatic and outline your immediate, non-negotiable action plan, starting with the absolute necessity of physically securing your currency notes in a safe, accessible location if you have not already done so, because the transition from a digital asset in your bank account to physical, spendable wealth in your hands will be the final, most critical step in this journey, and you must have your tangible assets ready for it. The next imperative is to immediately begin due diligence on the specific confirmed exchange protocols. This does not mean calling your standard retail bank and asking questions they are legally not permitted to answer yet, but rather proactively identifying the primary dealer banks and specialized currency exchange houses that have a documented history of handling exotic currency conversions and whose internal systems are ready. You must have your personal documentation perfectly in order, a valid government-issued photo ID, proof of the original source of your currency purchase to satisfy the final anti-money laundering, and know your customer checks and your bank account details for the incoming wire transfer, because any delay or discrepancy in your paperwork at the moment of truth could see you shuffle to the back of the line, missing the initial, most advanced. Understand with absolute clarity that the public narrative is about to undergo a seismic shift. The same mainstream financial news outlets that have dismissed this investment for years are now, as we speak, preparing their own emergency broadcast to explain this unprecedented monetary event to a stunned public. And when that dam of information breaks, the resulting frenzy will create logistical chaos, interminable wait times, and hesitated. Your advantage in this moment is your awareness, your preparedness, and your ability to act while the vast majority of the world remains blissfully unaware that the global monetary map is being redrawn in real time, and that advantage has an expiration date stamped on it in bold letters. I need you to internalize the sheer scale of what is happening. This is not merely a currency adjustment. It is a functional equivalent of a controlled economic dam release where decades of pent-up value backed by trillions of dollars of proven natural resources and industrial capacity are being systematically introduced into the global system. And you, as a currency holder, are positioned at the headwaters of that flow. The life-changing prosperity this can unlock is not just about paying off debts or buying a new car. It is about achieving a level of financial sovereignty where you can fund the ventures you are passionate about, secure generational wealth for your family that is insulated from the volatility of traditional markets, and become a pillar of positive change in your community by directing capital toward projects that truly matter. The responsibility that comes with this opportunity is immense, and it requires a calm, disciplined, and decisive mindset to navigate these final steps without being swayed by the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that will inevitably circulate as the old financial paradigm struggles to make sense of this new reality. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to transition from a passive holder to an active claimant of this new value, to step forward with your documentation and your assets, and confidently execute the strategy that you have held on to through years of anticipation. The starting pistol has fired. The path to redemption for these currencies has been walked, and the finish line is now in sight, not as a distant dream, but as a tangible financial transaction waiting to be completed. Therefore, I am telling you right now, do not wait for another update. Do not scroll through another forum looking for confirmation. And do not let the paralysis of analysis rob you of this moment. This is your official call to action. Get your affairs in order today, right now, as soon as this video ends. Secure your notes, prepare your documents, identify your exchange path, and get ready to make the most important financial phone call of your entire life. The RV is not coming, it is here. The time for waiting is over. The time for profit is now. Go and secure your future.